Dozens of MBTA janitors are trying to prevent layoffs. Officials recently allowed their cleaning contractors to make the cuts after the contractors ran up a deficit. Meanwhile, supporters of the janitors will get together tomorrow at a rally. To tell us about the campaign is a leader from the Janitors Union, the vice president of 32BJ SEIU and head of the New England District, Roxana Rivera. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, bring me up to date on what's happened with the janitors. I guess some of them have already been cut from their jobs?
So a week ago, the MBTA implemented cuts. They basically cut up to a third of the workforce that cleaned the stations, that had been cleaning the stations. And so that means that there's going to be, there are fewer janitors cleaning the stations. There's 145 stations throughout the whole system. And they basically are, only allowing few janitors to clean those stations. So folks are going to see a mess, because the garbage is gonna be overrun. Bathrooms are not going to be attended to, and so it's going to be a mess. And so the situation is that the governor's office really, even after we had asked them to not go ahead with this bad plan, they went ahead with it. We think it's a bad plan. We think it's going to hurt, the system, and not only the workers, right? I mean, the workers that are been asked to, to continue working, those that were not laid off, unfortunately, for a big chunk of them, they actually were dropped from full-time to part-time hours, so that they no longer had health care. And many of workers that were cleaning 1 to 2 stations are now cleaning 4 stations, and they just say, that there's actually no time. Like it's difficult for them to get, in less hours to more stations. So it is chaotic for the workers at the work site currently. Workers are not getting the supplies they need to clean because it's just chaotic, the work environment, given that they have to move from station to station. And so it is, not sustainable. We don't believe the workload is too much for workers. So, we are continue to reach out to the governor's office to try to address some of the fallout from the situation, right, to see, and unfortunately, up to this point, they've been non-responsive to our asks.
Since the cuts took place, I have to admit, I've only been on the T one day, a couple of orange line, a couple of green line stations. I didn't notice anything dramatically different, but what's the context here? Is there going to be some buildup later that we'll finally see, that we can't miss it?
So workers already, even on the first day, the workers were saying that, there were so many more complaints than what is usually, and so we do know that that writers have already been complaining, and I think that those complaints are just going to get worse as time goes on.
We're talking with Roxana Rivera, the vice president of 32BJ SEIU. This is also part of, this is coming at a time when you have negotiations for janitors that you represent across the board. Talk about the issues at play here.
Yeah, so we're currently negotiating for 13,000 janitors that clean all throughout Boston and Massachusetts. They clean all in the key pillars of our economy in Massachusetts, all the iconic buildings, downtown, to biotech, high tech, transportation like the MBTA and the airport. And so their contract with the contractors expires on September 30th. And so we are basically getting down to the wire here. So we're having a big march and rally tomorrow. We expect 2,000 janitors to be present and Senator Warren to be with us at 1 o'clock at the Boston Common Bandstand. Our main issues are this industry here in Massachusetts is predominantly part-time work, and that's because folks don't want to pay, for health care. And so we've been fighting for the last decade to bring more full-time work into this industry. So that's one of our major demands, as well as just, a cost of living wage increase. These are amongst the lowest wage workers in the state of Massachusetts. And so we want to make sure that they get a just wage increase. We also So we're finding to maintain the minimal benefits that we have, and
Talk about what that's like if a janitor doesn't have health care, because even if they have legal status with their immigration, doesn't mean they're eligible for much help from the government necessarily.
Right. I mean, the thing is that workers already have to, they can't make it with one part-time job. They have to, couple, 2 or 3 part-time jobs, and it's really, it causes instability for their families, right? Because they can't be around when it matters for their children. And so we want to bring more stability in this industry, both for the product, for the product that the clients get through the cleaning of their buildings, but also for workers themselves, some stability for their families, that folks can work one full-time job and be able to spend, the sufficient time with their families, and be able to take care of them at the same time. And so that, even though folks work around the clock, they're still not able to make ends meet. And so we want to make sure through these negotiations that we're able to do all that we can so that workers can continue to provide for their families. And healthcare is a main issue, right? Because the cost of healthcare, right? Even if they, do have mass health, they still, there's still costs involved, and so, for themselves and their families. And so we think it's important, where employers can actually pay for health, help pay for healthcare, that they do that. And so that's our goal is to have more full-time work, more access to family health care for folks, as well as a just wage increase.
We should mention about when and where exactly the rally will take place.
The rally is tomorrow at 1 p.m. at the Boston Common Bandstand in downtown Boston, and our rallying cry is to raise America with good jobs. And so Senator Warren will be with us. Ayanna Pressley, Boston City Council member, will be with us, and will be a lot of workers, not only from the janitorial industry but from fast food and airport workers, will be coming together to really profile the issue of how hard it still is for working families to make ends meet.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Roxana Rivera from SEIU 32BJ. Up ahead, the arts segment with Chris Harding.